98% of the purchasing power of the US dollar has been systematically erased since 1971. If you followed your parents' advice and saved for a rainy day, the rain has already washed your wealth away. I'm Alex. This is Wealthonomics, where we expose the financial system the wealthy don't want you to understand. Last week we exposed how your high salary is a debt trap. Today, we're going after the biggest lie of all, the idea that a savings account is a safe haven. By the end of this, you'll see why the safest thing you can do is actually the most dangerous gamble you're currently taking with your future. In 1971, the rules changed forever. When Nixon ended the dollar's convertibility to gold, money ceased to be an asset and became a currency, a debt instrument. Before this pivot, saving made sense because the supply of money was tethered to a physical reality. Now, the supply is infinite, controlled by the Federal Reserve and commercial banks. When you deposit $1, the bank doesn't keep it in a vault. They use fractional reserve lending to turn that $1 into 10, lending it out and collecting interest while your original deposit sits there, stagnant and losing value against the very items you eventually want to buy. The system is designed for a 2% annual inflation target, but that's a floor, not a ceiling. Think about that. The stated goal of the people who run the economy is to make your money worth 2% less every single year. Over a 30-year career, that stable target eats nearly half of your wealth. This isn't a bug, it's a feature. It forces the population to keep working and prevents the middle class from ever reaching a point of true escape velocity, where their capital does more work than their hands. The institutions benefit from your deposits because they provide the liquidity for their investments. But here's what your financial advisor will never tell you: a savings account isn't an investment, it's a loan you're giving to the bank at a predatory interest rate. They pay you 0.5% or maybe 4% if you're lucky, then they turn around and lend that same money to your neighbor at 7% for a mortgage or 24% for a credit card. You are the liquidity provider for the very machine that keeps you on the treadmill. While you celebrate a high-yield savings account, the bank is using your capital to acquire hard assets that appreciate at 3 times that rate. The part they deliberately don't teach in school is the invisible tax of M2 money supply expansion. Since 2020, the amount of dollars in existence has increased by nearly 40%. If you had $100,000 in a vault in 2019, you didn't lose money, but you lost the ability to buy 40% of the world. Your savings are a melting ice cube in a warming room. The elite don't keep their wealth in currency, they keep it in things that the currency is printed against: real estate, private equity, and scarce commodities. They want you holding the paper while they hold the land. Here's the thing that keeps middle-class families trapped generation after generation: the safety bias. We are biologically wired to avoid risk, and the banking industry has spent billions branding savings as the ultimate safety. But in a fiat system, safe is synonymous with stagnant. When you see a bank building, notice the marble, the gold trim, and the towering glass. That wasn't built with the bank's money, it was built with the safe savings of people who were too afraid to move their capital into the same assets the bank owns. You are paying for their luxury with your missed opportunities. Let's look at the numbers. If you save $1,000 a month for 40 years at a 1% interest rate, you have roughly $580,000. Sounds okay, right? But if inflation averages just 3%, that $580,000 will have the purchasing power of only $170,000 in today's money. You spent 40 years of your life, thousands of hours of stress and labor, only to find out the finish line was moved 5 miles further down the road. The math of the middle class is a rigged game where the variables are controlled by the house. You can't save your way to freedom when the currency is designed to fail. Everything I just told you is accurate. But there's a dimension to this story that almost no financial content creator covers: the wealthy person's debt loop. See, the rich don't just avoid saving, they actively use the depreciation of the dollar to their advantage. They borrow against their assets to buy more assets, knowing they'll pay back that debt with future dollars that are worth significantly less. While you're trying to stack cash, they are stacking productive debt. This isn't just about avoiding a loss, it's about understanding that in an inflationary environment, the borrower is the king and the saver is the slave. The velocity of money is the concept that truly separates the 1% from the 99%. For the average person, money is a destination, they want to get it and keep it. For the wealthy, money is a vehicle. It needs to be moving at all times. The moment a dollar hits a wealthy person's account, it is immediately routed into a cash-flowing asset. This could be a REIT, a dividend-paying stock, or a business venture. The goal is to minimize the time spent holding dead currency. They understand that a dollar bill is just a coupon for a piece of the future, and those coupons are being devalued every day. Look at companies like Apple or Berkshire Hathaway. People point to their cash piles, but they aren't sitting in Chase savings accounts. They are held in short-term treasuries, commercial paper, and sophisticated money market instruments that are constantly churning. Even then, they only hold that cash as dry powder for when asset prices drop. They aren't saving for retirement, they are waiting for a sale. If you are saving without a specific, immediate target for deployment, you aren't being prudent, you are being picked clean by the silent theft of inflation. We also have to talk about real yield. This is the nominal interest rate minus the real inflation rate, not the official CPI, but the actual cost of living, housing, healthcare, and education. If your savings account pays 4% but the cost of the things you actually need to buy is rising at 8%, your real yield is negative 4%. You are paying 4% a year for the privilege of letting the bank hold your money. Once you see this, you realize that the safest place for your money is actually a guaranteed loss of wealth. It's a slow-motion robbery that you've been trained to volunteer for. The psychological toll of this is perhaps the most insidious part. When you save and see your number go up, you feel a sense of accomplishment. But that number is a lie. It's like measuring your height with a ruler that shrinks an inch every year. You think you're growing, but you're actually getting shorter relative to the world around you. This false sense of security prevents you from taking the necessary risks in your 20s and 30s that lead to true wealth. By the time you realize the ruler was rigged, you've run out of time to pivot. We need to move from a saver mindset to an allocator mindset. So, what do you actually do? Step 1, calculate your runway. You need an emergency fund, usually 3 to 6 months of expenses, but not a penny more. Anything beyond that is trash cash that needs to be deployed. Step 2, understand the asset hierarchy. Move your capital into things with intrinsic scarcity or productive value. This means low-cost index funds for broad market growth, physical assets like real estate, or even high-quality collectibles if you have the expertise. The goal is to own the things that the inflated currency will eventually flow into. Don't be the bucket, be the well. This transition is scary because it requires letting go of the guarantee. But the only guarantee in the current system is that your cash will lose value. The stakes are your freedom, your time, and your ability to provide for your family in a future that will be significantly more expensive than today. Every day you leave excess capital in a traditional savings account, you are choosing to work longer and retire later. You are trading your life force for a paper promise that the issuer has every intention of breaking. It's time to stop saving and start building a fortress of assets that can withstand the coming storm. 3 things to take from today. First, currency is a depreciating debt instrument, not a store of value. Second, real yield is the only metric that matters for your long-term wealth. Third, the transition from saver to allocator is the single most important psychological shift you can make. Remember, 98% of your purchasing power has been erased since 1971. Here's what that actually means: the game isn't about how much you keep, it's about what you own. Next on Wealthonomics, the psychological tricks that keep you spending. If this changed how you see the system, subscribe. The next one goes deeper.